Like we have quite a few people hopping on, but appreciate all of you joining the call today. My name is Jeff Carnthong. I'm a research and development tax credit consultant here at Leyton. We're really excited to speak with you regarding the research and development tax credit specifically for agriculture. On this call, you'll be able to find out all kinds of information regarding the credit and figure out if you qualify. But by way of introduction here, if we can just go to the next slide, Maurice. Thank you. Again, my name is Jeff Carnthong. I'm an R&D tax credit consultant here at Leyton, USA. I've been with Leyton for a little over 4 months, enjoying it a lot so far. I have a specific focus in the agricultural industry. We have a lot of success in hemp, cannabis, CBD, and a lot of the ancillary industries within agriculture all across the board. I've spent the last 6 years in a sales capacity. I've worked in software across multiple different business units, multiple different industries, and I'm excited to bring my skills here to Leyton. So what I want to do now is actually hand it off to Maurice, the man of the hour, who is an agricultural technical consultant here at Leyton USA. Go ahead, Maurice.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you all for joining us today. Just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Maurice Washington. As Jeff said, I'm the agricultural technical consultant here for Leyton USA. I'm an agricultural engineer by trade. I have over 10 years of experience in agricultural engineering, including agricultural water quality, waste management, cropping systems, nutrient cycling, non-point pollution, and even cannabis and hemp regulatory experience. So I have a vast wealth of knowledge in the agriculture industry, and just want to thank you guys for joining us today.
Perfect, thanks, Maurice. We can go to the next slide here. I've put together an agenda for today's call. Just so everybody knows, we're gonna have a nice Q&A session at the end, so please hold your questions till then. You can ask them within Zoom in the QA section, but I want to first start by giving you an introduction to the tax credit, and then we'll go into the viability of the credit within agriculture. Talk about what can be claimed, right? How startups and small businesses can benefit as well. We'll answer your questions around, is your business eligible? And then I'll talk about our process and how we've been so successful with our clients to date, because it really is a tried and true, unique process. But just to give an overview of the credit itself here on the next slide. So Leyton's been around for over 20 years. We were founded in 1997. We're a global company with over 20,000 clients. We have 31 offices across 11 countries and over 1,600 employees. It's an exciting time here at Leyton. We have a specific expertise in optimizing the credit on the federal and state level. And we really want to help you unleash your potential, have this credit built into your business plan so that we can grow with you and be a strategic partner in that growth as well. We have a very smart, dedicated industry teams here at Leyton, composed of scientists, engineers, tax accountants, attorneys, and all these people are here to help you maximize your claim, identify exactly what it is within your business is R&D, and again, help you build that into your business plan for years to come. But just a little background on the credit here on the next slide. So the credit, it's actually been around since the 1980s, and it was on a 2-year renewal basis. And, you know, a lot of the time, people usually think, you know, research and development only happens in the big pharmaceutical companies and companies like that with big R&D departments, but that's definitely not true. In 2015, with the PATH Act, Protecting Americans Against Tax Hikes under the Obama administration, that was passed, and it made the credit permanent, which was huge for all organizations, small and large, to be able to access this credit. They've expanded it. And excuse me, really what it is, it's a government incentive that's available to companies that create or improve a product or process that's used by their business. It's a dollar for dollar credit. It offsets your income tax or your payroll tax liability. But the great thing is that you can claim this credit in the current year. You can look back up to 3 years on the income tax side to receive a refund on any taxes paid in the past. So this could be expanded to that. Again, it's an immediate reduction on your income tax or payroll tax. You can carry any credits that you bank forward up to 20 years to offset income tax liability if your credit is larger than your liability. It really increases your business valuation. You can support new projects, plan for hiring more people for specific projects, and it really frees up cash for you. So we're excited to be helping businesses claim this. But just to give you a little bit more specific detail, here on the next slide, I do want to hand it over to Maurice, who's going to be discussing the viability of the R&D tax credit and research and development itself within the agricultural industry.
All right, thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate that. So I really just wanted to talk about the viability of the R&D tax credit in agriculture. As we know, agriculture is a very dynamic and expansive industry, whether you're dealing with crop production or going all the way to biofuels or some of the other products within agriculture. Just wanted to highlight 4 particular sectors within agriculture that we feel that there is a lot of R&D going on in those particular sectors. These sectors do not encompass everything within agriculture, but I think it's a great representation of a large amount of some of the R&D that is currently going on. So first, we look at crop production. So whether that's dealing with agronomic crops, so your grains, your corn, your soybean, rice, or more on the horticulture crops, so fruits, vegetables, specialty crops, edible nuts, et cetera, et cetera. Within crop production, you're going to have a lot of work in genetics. You're going to have work in your harvest and planting technology. Also dealing with water conveyance, specifically with irrigation techniques, and in all types of crop production, more than likely you're going to be dealing with pests. So looking at pest management, also looking at, fertilizers and also manure management. So next, just looking at livestock production. So, again, there's going to be genetics work going on, work when in regards to livestock housing, whether it's your confined animal feeding operations or you're raising your livestock in pastures and things like that. And then also nutrition. So looking at feed efficiency, work with that, and also livestock processing, so meat science, and also again manure management. So you'll see a bit of overlap in some of these areas, some of these niches. Next, we have food science, dealing with a lot of food tech, food processing, food safety, and food packaging. And then lastly, I just want to look at, the ag tech, which is really starting to grow. Looking at ag tech, and it's simply the application of technology to the field of agriculture, whether that's crop management, cultivation, livestock production, anything along those lines. And it's really just improving yield, production, efficiency, or profitability using the application of those technologies. And just to touch upon a few areas, you have your smart farming, you have your virtual farming, using more of the controlled environment agriculture, using the virtual stacks, whether that's using hydroponics, aquaponics, aeroponics, that's the farming technique. And then it's a lot of work going on with your precision farming, using your drones, your LiDAR, and things of that nature. There's a lot of big data and AI going on as well. So, using a lot of sensors and data to optimize crop management, and again, sensor recorded data. of course, robotics and automation, especially with harvesting and food processing. And then, if we look at blockchain technology, so really looking at the supply chain aspect of the agricultural sector, food tracking, especially tracking products in a very complex ag food system, and then also using blockchain to track data, whether that's, with your pre-plant, your cultivation, harvest, storage, or even the marketing when it comes to wholesale or retail. So really tracking that data and looking at the inputs that you put into those respective parts of your business.
Hey, Maurice,
Mm-hmm.
real quickly, I just want to highlight here, everyone, that even though that we find a lot of R&D within these sectors within agriculture, again, the R&D tax credit is available to any and all companies if they meet a 4-part test. So just to keep that in mind, Maurice is going to go through that, but just wanted to highlight that real quickly.
Thanks, Jeff. So the R&D tax credit, the IRS defines R&D based on a 4-part test that they use. So the first test is having a new or improved product, process, technique, or formula of software. So simply, this process or qualified research does not have to be new to your industry. It just has to be new to your company per se. We're also looking for that part 2 for it to be technological in nature. So simply that activity performed must fundamentally rely on the principles of physical science, biological sciences, computer science, or engineering. And we often see that in the agricultural sciences. There's an overlap of those foundational sciences. Next is the process of experimentation, where alternatives have to be evaluated. So a part of this test, you have to be able to evaluate at least one alternative. And then lastly, the 4th test is any elimination of uncertainty within your experimentation or within your qualified research. So basically adding to the knowledge gap and eliminating anything that's uncertain in the product or process that you are trying to produce. So what can be claimed? So a part of the R&D tax credit, we have our qualifying research expenditures. And there are 4 categories that we look at to classify these research expenditures. The first is salaries. So those individuals who are directly involved in the qualified research, those who are directly supporting that qualified research, and those who are directly supervising. So example of this is, let's say you are a cultivator, you are cultivating, let's just say hemp or any type of crop like that. And you're really experimenting on different type of varieties, looking at the genetics of the crop, and you want to see by experimenting and evaluating different genetic strains, how that will benefit the yield of that crop. So let's say you have an individual who is working with you, they are helping with any type of fertilizers, natural fertilizers. They're helping with the irrigation management, making sure that the irrigation management and system is working correctly, making sure that the irrigation isn't clogged up. They're really assisting with that research project in regards to looking at the yield. So any individual who is helping support that research, their salaries or wages potentially would qualify. And then when we look at eligible subcontract costs, so anyone that you might be subcontracting out to and that you provide a 1099 to, we can claim potentially up to 65% of their wages. And then when we look at the raw materials and supplies, which is simply used to conduct the research, so these supplies have to be used in the production of a process or product. Supplies and raw materials cannot include land or any changes to land or any large depreciable capital costs. And then lastly, computers, externally leased for conducting research. Again, you're a cultivator, you're looking at different varieties, you're doing different test trials. So you have a lot of data that you want to house and look at and collect. So let's say you lease some type of cloud computing system to house that data. That will be an example of a potential R&D expenditure for computers. So next, let's look at the potential benefits of the R&D tax credit. So we have the income tax potential benefit for federal and in-state credit. So this reduces the income tax liability on a dollar-for-dollar basis. It can be claimed in the current tax year and retroactively for the 3 prior years. And then there's potential refund on overpaid historical taxes. So now let's look at the payroll tax credit. And this is really what we call the startup and small business provision of the R&D tax credit. And it reduces your payroll tax liability on a dollar-for-dollar basis. So this is really for your startup and your companies. It can only be claimed in the current year for a maximum of 5 years. And your revenue cannot be more than $5 million for your current tax year or any other revenues in the preceding 5-year period. And then there is a limit of up to $250,000 annually, potentially, that you receive for that credit. So on this slide, we just wanted to give you all some potential R&D activities within agriculture. Again, this does not show everything that you can do or would potentially qualify, but it does give you some ideas of some of the potential R&D activities occurring in agriculture. So if we look to animal science, so looking at the development, evaluation, or implementation of new breeding techniques, disease control, and odor control. If we look to cultivation, implementation of precision farming techniques in an attempt to increase yield and or production efficiency. So using the drones and the LiDAR equipment and things of that nature. And then we have the evaluation and implementation of environmental controls for crop, plant, and animal production. We have the hybridization or development of new strains of crops and plants, looking at, potentially genetically modified crops and things like that, stronger varieties for better yields and things of that nature. And then, when it comes to agriculture, we're always going to be dealing with pests. So design, evaluation, and implementation of different pest management strategies, whether that's integrated pest management or other examples of that. And then, of course, we always need water in agriculture. So the implementation and testing of irrigation methods, whether that's drip irrigation, center pivot, some type of sprinkler or in-gun irrigation, and also, testing of irrigation scheduling to optimize crop cultivation. And then lastly, on the food science side, an example could be the development or modifying techniques or processes to pathogens and contaminants for food safety. So this just gives you a snapshot of some of the potential R&D activities that are in agriculture. Again, there's so many others, and we're really looking forward to talking to you all and answer any questions that you might have, and specifically regarding the R&D activities in agriculture. And I'm going to give it back to Jeff.
Perfect. Thanks, Maurice. And everyone, I hope that gives you a better idea of not only how to think about your business from an R&D perspective, but starting to think about what kinds of costs can be associated, with those specific projects for R&D, and stuff that you've actually been doing in the past 3 years as well can all impact your business in building a credit and helping you improve cash flow and business valuation as well. But I want to talk about our process because we've had so much success with it. It's tried and true. And the big value of Leyton USA and Leyton globally here is we provide both technical, financial, legal, tax experts that are available to you to do a study, to maximize your credit, to give you a technical document that substantiates the claim, not only making the claim, but substantiating it, and helping you prepare those tax documents, and provide you with, a list of projects, a project document that you're going to be able to efficiently capture R&D within your business. So we're here to impact that, side of the business. But the great thing about how we work is that, we're here to provide you with a very granular look at this, but we can work on your schedule. We're not going to be interrupting, your business plans. We're able to work on tax deadlines very quickly, but we're also flexible in that we can work with you across a period of time to do the study, which is great for our clients. But just a quick overview of how this would look. It's an initial assessment with our tax technical legal consultants. It's a high-level conversation to discuss your company's eligibility and establish an optimal claim timeline. After that initial assessment, you'll have an idea of time commitment as well as the value of your claim going in. And if you're interested in discussing that initial claim value with me as well, I can give you a good idea of that on the sales side. We do have an engagement here that we move into, which is phone or in person if we can. Well, that's a little tough right now, but we've been able to have complete these claims successfully virtually. And then we'll exchange information over email as well between our consultants to start building that claim. And then we'll be building typically a 20 to 50 page technical report that is, again, meant to substantiate your claim. It's built in a way to answer any of the IRS's questions in the event of an audit, to really support that claim and maximize the value. And we'll deliver that to you at the end for the payroll credit and or the R&D credit. But that was just a quick overview of the process. And I think now we can move into Q&A. And I've actually brought a special guest in who, and his name is Ram Neidhart. He is a senior financial R&D tax credit consultant here at Leyton. And I know we don't have any questions yet, but I can quickly pose one to Ram just to kick it off. So if you have any questions, please type them here in the chat. But Ram, could you provide a little bit more information on the Leyton Process consulting side and kind of typically how long that takes, depending on the client?
Sure, thanks, Jeff. So typically when we're kicking off with a new client, we recommend expecting about 4 to 6 weeks total from that initial assessment until your credit study is completed. That basically allows for 2 to 4 weeks to complete the study. So that is, requesting our documentation, you guys all gathering that documentation, getting that over to us, building that time for us to analyze that documentation, having a couple of meetings to discuss the projects that went on in the relevant study years and build a narrative for what we're qualifying, how it meets that 4-part test, and how all expenses kind of fall under those given projects. And then we also build in the last 2 weeks so that your CPA can incorporate the results of your study into your tax filings and ask any follow-up questions they might have, and just make sure we have everything kind of organized and spick and span at the end of that full 4 to 6 weeks.
Awesome. Thanks, Ram. I guess I had another question around, when we speak to our clients, what type of information do we usually gather? What can they expect from, I guess, that front in terms of the types of financial documents that we look at, and then types of questions we ask them about their specific activities?
Sure, yeah, so our initial documentation request really kind of revolves around those 4 expense types that Maurice brought up earlier. So there's the salaries and wages, 1099 or invoice contractors, there's the computer expenses and any kind of supplies used in R&D. So our initial documentation request really just tries to gather that preliminary information. So we're looking at tax returns for the given years, as well as a few years leading up to establish the base years for this study. We'll be requesting W-2s to just cover that salary portion. We'll ask for 1099s or any kind of invoices for contracted labor if you didn't issue a 1099 and instead you were issued an invoice that you paid. We'll be requesting a P&L or a trial balance or general ledger, basically just a way to come up with the amounts for the supplies and those computer amounts. From there, typically the technical consultant may request some lab notebooks, for example, any kind of data that was collected during the study to support that R&D, to support the elimination of alternatives. And at that point, if there is any more information that we need, if for instance you provided that P&L, we might need a general ledger just to get a little bit more detail. But that's basically what we'd be looking for.